Hi, I'm Ray from Ray's Creations and I'm here for Riverside Crafts today, and we're going to be looking at Pixie Powders and Pixie Sparkles. I'm just going to put my camera down so that you can see what we're working on. Okay, so that's looking good for the moment. Right, now I can't see comments, so I have no idea if you're here or not, but I'm sure that if I keep looking, you'll turn up. And we keep doing things. So anyway, this is what we're looking at. These are the new Pixie Sparkles, and these are Pixie Powders, which have been about for a while now, and they both have some very similar things about them, but they're also slightly different. So it's just sort of having a look to see what they do. Okay, so one of the first things I do when I get a new thing in my craft room is I have a book, which is my playbook, my how does it work, what can I do with it, will it happen. So when the Pixie Powders and things came in, this is where I started. So I've got Pixie Powders and Pixie Sparkles. What are the difference and what can I do? Well, you can probably see here slightly, this is when I'm sprinkling them. Pixie Powders splitting colour. A lot of the Pixie Sparkles are just one colour. They do, some of them split, but not all of them, whereas most of the Pixie Sparkles seem to. They both can be used to make watercolour, and they will drag out quite nicely to give you a nice sort of pale colours and watery as well. They can also be mixed with things. So if you mix it with glycerin, it makes a blending solution, and then you can stamp with it, and I'll show you how to do that. Okay. This is what happens when I do different things with them, and the difference between working with it on normal paper and on paper that's gessoed, you can probably see there's a big difference in how it finishes itself off. And I do the same again with my Pixie Sparkles. So that's it on normal and then on gesso, and then I see what I can mix it into to make it look different. So here I've actually mixed the Pixie Powders into modelling paste to see if I can change the colour of that, and I've done similar here as well, so it gives me a look to see what I can do and can I change the textures and the colours. Okay, so that's where I start when I get something new in my craft room, just to help you with an understanding of what I'm doing. So I'm going to show you a couple of basic backgrounds. So this is Pixie Sparkles. Hopefully you can pick up and see there is an awful lot of shimmer in it, lots and lots of shimmer, and it looks more glittery because they're quite large flakes, whereas when you do it with Pixie Powder and you spread it out, you get the shimmer, but it's a lot more gentle. It's like it's a metallic finish, more pearlized rather than being a glittery finish, which is what you sort of see in the shimmer on the Pixie Sparkles. Right, so I'll just show you a few pictures of how I use them before we go on to doing some different bits. So I've got my art journals out. This is one of my favourite ways of using Pixie Powders, because basically they're a pigment, and when you you sprinkle it on the paper, add some water, and you get lots of fantastic colours come out, and they will split. So they look really good using them with the silhouette type stamps. You can use them to create your backgrounds, as you can see, to enhance the background, so you don't have to do so much colouring. So all of these things give you ways of using it. Okay, you can paint with them. So this card, the birds on this card, as you can see, there's quite a lot of shimmer in there. They are painted with Pixie Sparkles, so you can paint with them. Okay. The only thing that I will say to you is, because what they are, they do block out your black ink if you're a bit heavy-handed with them. So they will actually cover your stamped images if you want to. So you can actually give them some really good colour, but they will cover your stamped images. Okay, so that's the bits there that I wanted to show you. Right, so now let's start making a mess. I'm going to put my gloves on because there's lots of pigment in these, and like you probably guessed, they stain your fingers. And I've only just got the green off from last week when we were doing the inks, so I thought I'd better be a little bit tidier today. Right, the cardstock that I'm using, I've got watercolour and I've got mixed media. All right, they are fairly simple, basic stamped, and I've got some that I've gessoed, just so you can see. So I'm going to start here, and I'm going to start off with the base thing that we tend to do with them, which is nice and simply, we'll pick up a colour that we like, you turn it up, turn it over, and just gently tap, and you'll get some powder fall out. Okay, now at this point you think, well, that's not doing much. But as soon as you add a spritz of some water into it, it'll wake up and you'll get all these lovely colours coming through. And you create yourself a really nice background that's quite simple and quite easy. At this point, if you wanted to, you can pull the colour out so that you can make your butterfly have the colours where you want them. So you can pull your colours out quite happily and actually give yourself a completely blue butterfly and make it look like it's sort of watery in the background. So you can really have a play with it and spread it around. As you can see, the Pixie Sparkles give you a really nice shimmer and give you this beautiful watery background, which is really pretty. I'm just going to put that one there to dry. And I'm going to do a similar background, but this time I'm going to use the Pixie Sparkles so that you can see the difference. Okay, I'm just going to clean off this so we don't get contamination. Okay, right. So this one time I'm going to use Pixie Sparkles, similar type of colour. As you can see, they're in a different pot. That's because I think the mica flakes are a lot bigger in this one. And when this comes out, you can see the mica, you can see the silvery micas that fall out, and it looks a lot more sparkly, the powder does. Okay, but in the same way, once you start spritzing it, you'll get the colour and it will come out. Okay, so that's a good way of you getting a base background without having to do an awful lot of work, and it makes a very pretty topper and it dries quite quickly. Okay, now one of the other things that I like to do is I like to paint with my Pixie Powders because I love the colour and the intensity. Now it's very easy to mix them up. Okay, this is my Pixie Powder palette. To make a Pixie Powder colour, you literally drop a little bit in, add some water, and you've got a paint. Okay, so straight away you have a paint to use. Now I mix up, there's a lot of powder in one of these, okay, an awful lot. Bearing in mind, this particular one, Aqua Lagoon, this has been backwards and forwards to at least 3 different of the double days that we do at Riverside Crafts. So this has had an awful lot of very heavy work. Never mind about the work that I do with it, but actually with just going backwards and forwards and into classes. And I've had this one for about 4 years and I have still got more than half of it in there. So it goes a long, long way. Okay. Now, but what I do is I actually mix some of mine up into a palette with some water, leave it to go dry, and actually then just have a palette with what I want in it. And I can just add to it like you would do normal watercolours then, and you can just pull it off to paint where you want to give yourself your colours, you see. So it's nice and easy to do. You can add as much colour in as you want, or as least as amount as you want. And you can have it as transparent, just like you would do normal watercolours. Okay, so it's quite a nice way of using your Pixie Powders. And it also means you don't have to waste. So like when that piece is dried, I can go back in and use that again. I don't have to just wash everything up. I can actually just leave it and I've got it there to go back to. And I can use it again and again. Okay, so that's quite a nice way to use them, to make up as paints. You can do exactly the same with your Pixie Sparkles. So here's my Pixie Sparkles palette. Okay, now I haven't really got a yellow in this one yet because I haven't picked one up, so I'm going to do it with an orangey reddy colour. But as you can see, you can paint in exactly the same way. It will pick it all up. You can be as dark as you want and it will have the shimmer on it, no problem. And you can just keep going. All right, so you can add your colour in. You can work the colours together. They will work together quite happily. You don't have to, because they're all a watercolour based product. Okay, so we've done a little bit of watercolouring with it and we've done a bit of things. I'm going to come back now, so I want to show you something else that I found out when I was playing with them, which I really quite liked. It works with both, so it's not a problem. So I'm going to use the Pixie Sparkles because that's what I as on this piece of cut and dry. I'm going to put a little bit on my mat. Okay, and next to it, I'm just going to put a drop of glycerin. Okay, and it is only a little drop. Don't want a lot. The least you put on, the better in a way. Okay, and you're just going to mix them up. Okay, so you're just going to mix it up until you've got this sort of, you've got a blue. You see how you've got a blue coming now. This then creates my own blending ink, so I can now blend around the edge of whatever it is I want to give myself an edge. Okay, so I can have a sort of a blended edge on it if I want to. But one of the other things that it does is, because I've got all this colour now on my cut and dry, if I dab it carefully over my stamp, I can now stamp with it. So my image that I've been looking at working with, that I want everything to match on my card, so I want my blending ink, my backgrounds, it all to tone in together, not a problem. I can make all my own stuff up and play with it. And because glycerin is very slow to dry, if you put this in a bag, it would be good for weeks because it wouldn't go off particularly. Okay, so then you've got your own blending ink and you've made your own stamp, which is quite a nice thing to play at doing, isn't it? Just a bit different. Right, one of the other things that I discovered was they work differently on a gessoed card stock. And on this is not the watercolour, this is actually mixed media. So if on mixed media card, it's going to work slightly differently again to how it works on your other ones. So I'm just going to put a bit more down, give it a bit of a good tap. Okay, and you can spritz it quite happily with a coloured ink if you wanted to, so you can mix your colours. Right, so that's quite nice like so. But actually I want another colour on there, but I don't want to sprinkle more powder on. So if I put a little bit of this mica powder into my spritz bottle with a little bit of water, I never make lots up because it's not got preservatives in it. The same when you buy a spray, it'll have a preservative in it, which will enable it to be a bit safer. So now I've got my own spray ink that I can use as much as I like, and I can make that as dark as I want to, because I'm just adding more of my pigments. So I've made my blending ink, I've made my spritzing sprays, I've got a paint palette, and I've got my powders just to sprinkle to make myself my background. So all of those things I can do with just these pots of powders, which give me an awful lot to do. But they do one more thing, which I quite liked. I just find myself a piece of paper. There should be a piece under here somewhere that's not got anything written on it. Here we go. Because I hadn't thought about this until the other day when I was messing around with the glycerin, to be honest. Was if I stamp with Versamark, excuse my Versamark, this one is very, very grubby. This is the one I use for doing things that I'm playing and investigating, because it is the grubbiest Versamark I've seen for a very long time. But there we go. Right, I'm just going to put a little bit of, let's go with dark blue because I think you'll see it again. Okay, this works with both of them, so it doesn't matter which one you use. Okay, use a dry paintbrush and just gently brush it over where you are, and it will pick up the pigment. Same as what you would have done with your mica powders and your chalks. You can do exactly the same with your Pixie Powders and with the Pixie Sparkles. So you've got your little stamped image that you've done nice and lightly for your sentiment there, and all your colours are in it, which is lovely. So you can do quite a few bits with this particular type of work without having too many problems. So I'm having fun now. I'm gonna do my plate. I'm just gonna get you a piece of gessoed card because it acts differently. Okay, and we're gonna sprinkle. Which one shall we sprinkle? Let's have a look. Ooh, Let's go with the lime one, because not used that one much. So I'm going to sprinkle some lime on here, quite definitely. And I'm going to wake it up using the blue spritz sprays that we've just made to see what happens. You see how, look, now you're going to get multiple colours turning up because you're mixing your colours and your sprays. So you're getting the greens coming in and the blues. Gives you a different look. All right. So that's my background created. But can you see how it's not soaking in on the gesso? It will run more. It doesn't soak in the same way because it sits on the top, because the gesso is actually sort of made it slightly waterproof, which gives you a slightly different finish. So if you were going to colour your bee in again, it would colour differently. And you can also, when you've done it on gesso, so like here I've got his wing has coloured. If I go back in and put water over where his wing is, and I get my tissue, that I can lift that off so there isn't any colour where his wings are. So his wings will stay white while the background's all multiple colours. Okay. And if you've gone too far, you can just drop a bit of colour in with your paintbrush just to make sure it's okay. Okay. And that's, so now you've made your finished product, because you've got your nice bright white wings, and that's all because I've gessoed it beforehand. Okay. It's still on mixed media card, it's just been gessoed, and I've used a coloured spritzer as my liquid. All right, so that gives you quite a nice finish. It's a bit of fun, isn't it? And you never really know what you're going to, every time it's going to be a different background, which is quite nice. Right. Where is my other base? This one. Okay. One of the other things that I really like to do with my Pixie Powders is get my drawing gum out. Now, this drawing gum by Pebeo is water soluble when it's wet. When it dries off, it doesn't. It stays what it is. So I would just sort of, I could write my name in it. Let's have a look. Okay, I'm just taking that down. I'm going to stretch that out because I want that to do. Pulling it down, and then this way. Okay, we're just plodding along. I hope you're having a nice day. I know the weather's changed again. A bit of rain happening at the moment, which is not something we really want, is it? Right, so I'm going to leave that to dry for a minute. I need to go back on that. Stick that in there to clean up. I do like these glass pens for scribing with. They're much easier for me to clean because I do get in a bit of a pickle. Okay, now just so that you can see, I'm going to make up myself a spritzing spray. I'm going to make a yellow one up this time with the Pixie Powders. There you go. Want it quite bright yellow when it works in a minute. You can see the beautiful mica in the water. It's really shimmery. Hopefully you can see how bright and glorious that goes. Okay, I'm going to make this one a bit more deeper blue, so I can show you how deep we can go. The sparkle inside these ones reminds me of the amount of sparkle you get from the Crafters Companions sparkle pens that they make, and the overlay, that same sort of silver sparkle is what you get. I mean, I don't know if you can see it on that, you get, it sort of sits on the top more, a bit more like it's a bit different in how it looks by comparison to the yellow. The yellow looks like it's pearlized, and you can see it sort of sitting through it. It doesn't do the same with the Pixie Sparkles, but it's still very pretty. Right, so I'm going to put some colour on. So that's my base colour. I'm going to put another colour on as a powder, so I get a different look again. Okay. Put a bit of yellow on it. And then we're just going to wake up the Pixie powders a bit more with some water. Now you can see how they move, how they're moving. Okay. I'm just going to dry that now. How many of you have been out to buy the new distress inks that have been out? Because Riverside got the salvaged patinas in this week, and I have to say the colours are really pretty. Really like it. Well impressed. So I can see that one being used quite a lot in my stuff, because I do like the turquoisey sort of colours, the verdigris. So that works quite nicely for me. I was in the shop this morning having a chat with Caroline, trying to decide what to do next week when we come through and I do my next Facebook Live, and we think we're going to be doing some work with some alcohol inks, the alcohol ink pens, so your markers. We've not done anything with those for a while, so we thought we'd have a quick look at those next time round, and I'd show you how and where I mixed them up to make them into cards and toppers and things, so that you can see what we do with it. I'm just going to give this a rub so that you can see the release a bit more. See if we can find my name. It should be under there somewhere. Oh yeah, there we go. Okay, so now you can see I've got like a dandelion head, and then my name is just here. So you can do sort of black out and then have bits come on, which is quite a nice way of doing things. It's a nice way of giving yourself something different to look at. So you could have had put thank you on it, and then have done this, and then wait for it to dry, and make it off and make a really nice thank you card, or thinking of you, or anything like that, just to make it a bit more sort of special, if it makes sense. So it becomes a little bit more, especially if you're somebody who does a lot of your calligraphy writing, you can do that with that ink, and then let it dry, and then pull it back, and you can have your pretty picture at the end, which is quite nice. A nice way of doing it. So just to finish up, to make my palettes, I put my powder in, I mix it up with a bit of water, make it quite thick, and then just put it to one side and leave it to dry, and then I can just pull them out and use them whenever I like. Okay, and I've got my little bits of paint there just to use whenever I want. Done exactly the same with the Pixie powders. I let it dry, and then I go back in and I can use it whenever I need to, and it's just there. I have labelled mine are labelled on the bottom. That's because I forget which ones are which, so that I know what they are. So you've got quite a few options to play with. You know, makes a beautiful top for a card. That's with this. So these will, and so with that one. So if you cut them down and use them as card toppers, they really sort of work really well, and give you a very different edge. But the fact that you can use them to paint with, to spritz with, to do what they were designed for, to explode the things with them. You can make yourself a blending ink with it, which we can also use as stamping ink. You can use them like you used to use your mica powders in the same way. If you've not got them, then these will work in the same for the same thing. So you've got a lot of uses again for Pixie Powders and Pixie Sparkles that really you don't tend to think about doing, but actually it makes your product work for you, which is what you want. They're not an expensive thing to do, and when they do so many different options, they give you a lot more value. And they are really pretty colours. There's some stunning colours in them at the moment, and they're the ones that you've just seen in my palettes. There's only a few. I'm rather partial to them, I have to say. So anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you next time. And we'll be looking at some alcohol marker work. So I'll see you then. Take care. Bye bye. Bye.